I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for our monthly Mental Health Matters. A chance to chat with you this month about emotional intelligence. Yep, that's going to be the thing. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255. Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thanks so much for joining us. It really is a distinct honor, privilege, and pleasure for me to sit here. So thank you all for, not signing that petition to say, have me replaced. Not just kidding. That'll be tomorrow.
I never do that.
949-8037 is our number to call. Likewise, the toll-free line, 1-800-534-8255. Appreciate Miss Susan sitting there, keeping my company. And today's... it's our monthly edition of our monthly Mental Health Matters, Emotional Intelligence. In the studio, Dr. Alexandra Borden, Ms. Dallas Drally, and, get a chance to welcome again to our studio Ms. Natalie Baldwin together, returning, I didn't realize for so long, Ms. Annie Eden. Ladies, I was just thinking earlier as I walked onto the studio, of all the shows that we do, whether it's monthly or whether it's a little bit less frequent, with the greatest respect, all I enjoy this one for two reasons. I get to learn, I get to prepare. It's a lot of work. But I think the importance and the increasing discussion that we're having publicly and in our homes and in our offices about the importance of mental health, what it means. Hopefully we're planning financial, hopefully we're looking at our physical health. But the notion that we're thinking of health being inclusive and mental health being a priority. Dr. Borden, I give you kudos every month for this, so thank you very much.
And thank you for having us every month.
All right. If I could, though, with a great respect, maybe as we start the show, just to share with the listeners, for those who are familiar, we'll see so much on a frequent basis. Ms. Anya, hopefully, now that you're able to return and join us. Yes. We'll bring you back in as often as we can.
Glad to be here.
Dr. Borden, maybe start with you. Just go around the place, Ms. Dallas, and then just have a quick intro. Each person can say one good thing that they like about me. No, just kidding.
You want to say your hair?
Yeah. That's my favorite thing as well.
And his love for chocolate.
Yes.
Yeah, there are two things I love: chocolate and chocolate.
I second that.
Yeah. All right, so Dr. Borden, with you.
Okay, so
quick intro if we could.
Right, so I'm Dr. Alexandra Borden.
Okay, just pull that mic a little bit and then...
Better. I'm told I have a therapy voice. I'll speak up.
Yes, it's a therapy session.
So I am a clinical psychologist at On Course Cayman, and there we provide psychotherapy as well as psychological testing for kids, teens, and adults. We also do corporate trainings and workshops, and I do therapy using horses as well. So, and I also teach at UCCI, so I'm excited to be here.
Where she finds that?
We're all lucky to be here with her today.
Yeah. Hey.
And Miss Dallas?
Yes. Thank you again for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here. I'm a therapist. I work for Infinite Mind Care. I'm a marriage and family therapist, and that's why I'm super excited to talk about this topic today, because it's really at the foundation of everything that I do every day with my clients. I see at Infinite Mind Care, we all see a variety of individuals, couples, families. We also do like a lot of corporate workshops, wellness series, a variety of different things and needs, and it's all really honestly centered on emotional intelligence. Everything that we do. I mean, that's why we're all collectively here today and excited about this topic. And as you just you mentioned earlier, about mental health, how we all have mental health. The thing is that we all have mental wellness. People get very, it's not to correct, it's just also that's where the stigma lies, where everyone goes, oh, I don't need mental health things, right? That's not the kind of service I need. We all need mental wellness. So we all have mental wellness. It's how we take care of it, right? So everything that we talk about today applies to everybody. We're not talking about just mental health issues. And that's really the key. I would like to
thank you for
our
that.
listeners know that.
No, I appreciate it. And before we ask Ms. Natalie Jones, the idea, I have said this all the time, life and death is in the tongue. Words are powerful.
They really
mental wellness. I started to, because I said and alluded to it, your physical wellness, your financial wellness, mental wellness. That's going to be, I'm going to put that.
It's been a really big thing. Like, we've actually gotten that feedback before, a lot of just even like customers or people who have been hearing these talks, right? And they're like, I don't have mental health issues. Like, stop saying that I do type thing, right? And when they're hearing this, like this message that we're all talking about, it's just the same. You have physical health and wellness, right? And so do I. We all do. It's the same with mental health and wellness. So
mental wellness matters? I don't know. Yeah. We'll work it out for next season.
Understanding, we have all got the mental health. It's mental illness that people start to get concerned about.
Right.
So when we're talking about these topics, we are either preventing or, at least helping to treat our mental wellness and well-being.
Well, thank you. You know what? I like that.
Thank you. Thank you, Dallas. Yes, it really is how you say things and reframe it.
Those really matter.
My name is Natalie Baldwin, and I work for the Cayman Islands Crisis Center, and I run Taya Lounge, and that is a teen and young adult trauma-informed after-school program for at-risk teens, 14 to 21, and I'm a licensed master social worker with experience in play therapy. So I'm also really looking forward to this topic because what I do every day with my teens is to help with their mental wellness, not mental health, and just to empower them and give them the life skills that they need to succeed later on in life.
Perfect.
Awesome. Hi, good afternoon. I'm Dr. Anya Eden, and I'm an industrial organizational psychologist. So that basically is the study of people in the workplace. We are awake and we're working for those hours that we are awake. So with that being said, we have to take care of ourselves, and we're bringing our full self to the workplace. So with that being said, we are, I work in the private sector here, and it's about training and development. More is where I would line up with, and it's about just ensuring that the full person that comes to work is productive, is happy to be there, is engaged to be there, and obviously we get the full package. So we got to make sure that the being is happy, and then the workforce is happy.
And I appreciate that because when I look around the table and see how this all impacts us, if I just maybe start with Dr. Anya as we move around, was it way back when OB, organizational behavior, is what we're looking at, and we see the changing in the words, and you come into the environment. It was probably a time when you were looking to make sure the factory floor or the different things were safe, and then in the office in the last maybe 2+ decades, the ergonomics. So from one century to the next, but now it's everything.
Absolutely. So what we're coming to find right now is soft skills, or what is termed soft skills, which I have a...
Me too.
The soft skills are actually quite hard, and that's what we find our leaders are struggling with. Right. You can be an expert in your field, you can have the technical knowledge, the background, you can do your job blindfolded, but when it comes to operating through people, then we see some issues come up because it's about that empathy. It's about understanding how to get the most out of the team you're working with. And that takes emotional intelligence.
Okay, I want to eventually get a better understanding for myself for this, the idea of what is emotional intelligence. But again, first, many firsts, right? Soft skills. I struggle with the notion that these things, some of these things, they're not soft skills. These are the things that you were sort of expected. The early days, the pleases and thank yous, the little courtesies. They're more than that, but we can talk, maybe expound on that a bit. But are they not only difficult, but are they once expected and accepted? But nowadays, it's let me bowl you over because I'm getting to the top, get out of my way sort of mentality, to the winner and the victor go to spoils sort of thing.
I would have to agree. I again think it's just, it starts from somewhere, right? And again, what we're finding is that we have a lot of adults that we're introducing the concepts to. Just how do you deal with regulating your reaction to things? That shouldn't be something I'm introducing to you as an adult. You should have had that experience from young. So we have to work through that. We have to teach it, understand, do you know what self-awareness is? Because self-awareness is critical. I can't get you to see anything else if you can't see that you have an opportunity to develop here and there.
Okay, so when we look at self-awareness and idea of socialization, like some words are self-centered, self-absorbed. Some words are, for the most extent, so willing to give that we ignore our own health and the like. So from one spectrum to the next. Ms. Dallas?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I think you're already getting to the point of like something I wanted to address today is balance and boundaries, right? So that's a huge part of emotional intelligence in the workplace, at home, in your personal life. It's really about how do we set healthy emotional boundaries with everybody else. And that's such an essential skill in every aspect of our lives. That's when we run into problems, is if we don't have that, first off, that self-awareness, the ability to set boundaries with other people, and then the emotional and social engagement with others. Again, employees, coworkers, your significant other, your children. The emotional intelligence is key in each of those arenas.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then from that perspective, well, maybe start it off. So let's define EQ. You know, yes, for those of us who audiophiles, there is an EQ, but this is a different thing. We see the I guess the physical intelligence, the actual knowledge, the technical knowledge of things, but the emotional intelligence, is there an accepted, universally defined definition? What is emotional intelligence?
Yeah, so EQ is what they're calling it, which is a play on intelligence quotient, or IQ, which we use to measure cognitive abilities. And so emotional intelligence is going to capture a lot of the ideas that we're discussing, which is being able to be aware of yourself and being able to understand it and able to manage and self-regulate. So when you get under stress, you're able to identify it and manage it in appropriate and healthy ways. And then also translating that into your relationships as well. So being able to understand the people around you and understand what's going on, see your impact on them, their impact on you, and then being able to negotiate that and build healthy, positive relationships.
Okay. So I was looking at the comparative different studies and the like, and pulling from even different religions, fruits of the spirit, for instance, in the scriptures, and then the notion of being sensitive and self-aware, the idea of being I guess somewhat position that you have a degree of empathy, not sympathetic but empathetic towards things. Now, I practiced it a little bit. I have to apologize to my friends because they're like, "You're being weird. What are you doing?"
New skill we learned on the show.
At least you're practicing. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
I told them to embarrass them. You know, a bunch of guys. We were assembled. It's a Monday morning. You know, it's rainy. They really didn't have any desire for this morning. But hey, somebody needs to break the mold, right? Some watch, you know, there's a big football match yesterday. Okay, the U.S. won, the celebration. Well, you know, Netherlands didn't win. So there's a disappointment. And I pick on each one, all right? And I'm watching these guys, and as I did it, I'm realizing that I can empathize with you and almost, to an extent, almost be placating to an extent with guys, because we don't do that, right? And just watching the responses and how people sometimes are challenged because you're just being too sensitive, you know, for a guy. But it works well if you're a leader. How do you get that person to come on? If you're a coach, you're a manager, you know, you're the captain of the football team, and you want your team to excel because it's the last. How do you bring them along? Ms. Dallas?
Well, yeah, if I can just jump in, I'll just say, like, I think one of the big things here, we're in a paradigm shift of really looking at what we used to maybe term as, that's a weakness, right? That's something I jump on all the time, is viewing what emotions and being sensitive, I'm using air quotes, because that's really often a sign of emotional intelligence or emotional maturity, someone being sensitive to other people, man, woman, anything in between, right? Because it's just, again, that basic skill. We all have emotions. This is not something that is a sign of weakness. So it's the shift that we are experiencing, being able to look at individuals who are able to identify and express their own emotions as healthy and mature and intelligent in this way, rather than that's a sign of weakness if you have to express yourself, right? And that's we've talked on the show before on other topics where this has, you know, it's from the time that we're little kids, as Dr. Anya already has mentioned. We need to move away from, I will just say, like, little boys don't cry, to it's an okay emotion. Emotions aren't bad. Sadness and anger, it's how we manage them. That's why we get to adulthood and then can have all sorts of problems and conflict because we haven't maybe learned the proper ways to deal with these normal everyday emotions that we all experience.
I would think that also with the self-awareness and the emotions, we're taught as young, little boys don't cry, so don't cry is to bury the emotions and don't feel them. And so that's really hard as an adult when you're in the workplace and you have these feelings and then you don't know what to do. And so you start coping in unhealthy ways. And so that's one of the hardest things.
And let's think about who occupies the top tiers of organizations too. Absolutely. So we still haven't fixed that barrier of having equality of gender at the top levels of the organization. So men do. But there's still an expectation, good leadership, you are able to connect, you're able to understand your team regardless. Yeah. So emotions tends to be a touchy, feely, soft type of word that maybe men shy away from, perhaps. But it is quite powerful if you know how to actually hone in on those.
So can I ask them, when we come back from the break, can you exhibit all this thing without being touchy-feely in a sense, and especially in light of the environment that we find ourselves where the teacher in some jurisdictions not allowed to physically touch and console the child. The child is falling, the knees scraped. Teachers who work in jurisdictions told me, I can't do that. I can't say little things that, can't do that. The worker, male to a female staff or a female to female, can't physically touch. There are certain boundaries. So is the touchy-feely literally touchy-feely? Is it the sensitive part? Can you have the EQ without it being emotional in a sense, right? All right. It is our monthly Mental Wellness Matters. We're talking about mental wellness and we're focusing on emotional intelligence. So when we come back, we invite you to share with us. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
What do you love more than summer? Extra flights between Grand Cayman and Jamaica with Cayman Airways, of course. Cayman Airways has added extra flights weekly for travel between Grand Cayman and Kingston this July and August. Visit family and friends in Jamaica or send for them to visit you in Cayman. But hurry, these extra seats will sell out fast, so book yours today. Remember now, check-in time is 2 hours before departure. Call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or book online at CaymanAirways.com.
When a storm is approaching, be sure to not only stock up on drinking water, but also non-drinking water. This is water that can be used for cleaning and washing. You can store non-drinking water in clean bathtubs or other large sterile containers. Visit the Water Authority's website, www.waterauthority.ky, or follow us on social media for more hurricane preparedness tips.
The following is a special announcement from the Cayman Islands Civil Service Association.
It's that time again.
SIXA Back to School Member Backpack and School Supplies Distribution will take place July 8th to the 12th, daily from 1 to 7 p.m. in Grand Cayman at the SIXA office located on the second floor of the Hospital Road Plaza above number 1 Shoe Shop.
And July 13th in Cayman Brac from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. at the Aston Ruddy Civic Center Medical Wing.
Members, you are being asked to kindly bring identification, and if you are collecting bags on behalf of another member, please bring a written signed note from that member with a copy of their ID as well. Remember, SIXA members backpack distribution July 8th to the 12th, daily from 1 to 7 p.m. in Grand Cayman at the SIXA office located on the second floor of the Hospital Road Plaza above number 1 Shoe Shop.
July 13th in Cayman Brac, 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. at the Aston Ruddy Civic Center Medical Wing. And to quote Anthony D'Angelo, develop a passion for learning. If you do, you will never cease to grow.
Hi, this is Bob Kingsley, and this weekend...
The Bob Kingsley Top 40 Countdown is brought to you by Merengue Town. Liven up your weekends and let loose with the grooves of Merengue Town. It's time. Feel the rhythm. Time to feel the vibes. It's time for Merengue Town.
And, of course, the rest of the 40 hottest hit makers on the radio this weekend, right here on the Country Top 40.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us and in the studio for our monthly Mental Health Matters as we look at mental wellness. And we have a chance to talk about emotional intelligence. Emotional, right? Now, EQ, I call it, not EI, right? Emotional intelligence. Sometimes, as we think about our lives, maybe some of us are maybe a little bit more tuned. Maybe we are possessed it and we realize that we have because we're sensitive and sympathetic and we're empathetic and the like. Well, in the studio, we have the experts, Dr. Alexandra Borden, we have Miss Dallas Drally, and Miss Natalie Baldwin, and Dr. Anya Eden joining us. And I look around here and I'm thinking, the resources that we have within our society, just sometimes, literally, at an arm's length, is so phenomenal for such a small, geographically small, population-wise, but yet so diverse and so impactful. Dr. Borden, EQ and the notion. I was asking the question as we go into the discussion. Can you possess it, one, and not be aware that you're highly emotionally, intelligent, and then two, can you exhibit it without it being touchy-feely? So those are the two questions first, and then we get into the rest of it. You guys jump in.
Drops the bomb and runs away.
Isn't that how we're doing this?
Of course.
And so it's a new concept coming forward and how they've pulled different ideas together.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's definitely possible to have it, and that you're good with people, and people can tell that you're good with people, and you're confident, and you do well, right? Because a lot of times people with high emotional intelligence are going to be successful, and they are going to be the leaders. So I definitely say it is possible to have it, even if you don't, without recognizing it or not understanding it to be emotional intelligence.
Okay.
If I can also just kind of say, too, is I want to just clarify, I think, because it's not something that we have or we don't generally. This is a spectrum concept, right? Mm-hmm. So everybody has a degree of emotional intelligence most of the time. It's just how low of emotional intelligence you may have or how high of it, right? Mm-hmm. So I say that just because I think that's important for listeners to know. It's not, oh my gosh, I don't have this thing and I can't have it. I must not naturally have this ability.
Right.
It's something that we can grow, and these are just traits and skills. So as listening today for some key concepts and words of what it looks like to be lower on the scale of emotional intelligence versus what it looks like to be higher on that scale. And then that's when you can pinpoint, okay, here are my strengths, but here are definitely the areas where I really could grow. So it's a spectrum that we all are on.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that the question you asked is if we could, as the teacher, show emotional intelligence but not be touchy-feely. One of the concepts I use a lot in play therapy is reflective listening. So a kid falls down, you can say, oh, I see that you fell down and that hurt and that made you sad, but you got back up and now you're feeling better. So it's just the way you can word things, attaching feelings, which then creates the very first step is the more self-awareness and understanding what feelings are and how they feel.
Okay.
I would have to piggyback on that. I think that it really boils down to some effective communication too. So definitely if a child could fall down, but in the workplace you have an employee who's distressed. You may be distressed, and it's about coaching. It's a coaching opportunity between the manager and the employee, or perhaps employee to employee, but it's about, what's causing you to feel this way? Why are you feeling this way? So again, it just gets into the questioning, it's understanding and pinpointing, so you're not just stressed and overly anxious about things all day, and then how productive are you really? And of course, I may just be focusing on the workplace, but this applies outside completely with your spouse, with your children. It's just identify what is causing you this angst, what is causing you this emotional distress, and you have to pinpoint it, and then you recognize it, then you can deal with it, and then you can be open to have a relationship that's,
So if I then,
Go ahead.
sorry, if I can ask, then there's some of us who can fake. You know, say fake it till you make it. Fake certain things. We can pretend for a while. Even their technical skills, we can pretend that we're somewhat. You know, people pass off as a physician, as lawyers for the longest of time until they're caught. Can you fake EQ?
Okay. Another good question. So a lot of times I actually use that expression, fake it till you make it, when I'm working with people on communication skills. Right, so my concern would be the intention behind faking it. Is it that they tend to be more passive or more withdrawn, and they're trying to speak up now, and they're kind of testing their comfort zone, so it's not how they would naturally interact, but they're working on building skills, and that way they are not being completely genuine, but they're working on it. Or is it that they're trying to manipulate people?
Okay, I think the former, but you know what?
Yeah.
Like the express ask.
I wanted to get to that eventually, is how your EQ matches with your values. Like, that's a whole other situation. So if manipulation is behind it, that's when we've got more of a problem. That's when we see more like narcissism and other personality issues, right? So you could have someone who's very charming and engaging and seems very high IQ, right? Or EQ. But if behind that is the manipulation, if there's an ulterior motive or multiple, right, that's where we have a problem. But I do believe that in some, just like any other skill building, these are some skills that we can fake it till you make it. Go out and try to do these things and work on yourself and work on your relationships until you get the desired outcome.
But that's self-improvement. I mean, if you're trying, you're not comfortable public speaking, so you join some organization that helps you with that. You're not particularly adept at wanting to take leadership, maybe in your service club to help the fundraising. But that's different than the person who lacks sincerity. So then we get the narcissistic, perhaps the sociopath tendencies.
Yeah,
upstairs, you listen.
Well, and because one of the things that keeps coming up is empathy, right? Which is genuinely being able to connect with others and understand their perspectives as opposed to manipulating.
Over time, you'd be able to see the self-serving nature, right? So you may be considering how that person feels, and you really want the best for them. But over time, the behavior starts, people could pick up on it. I mean, you know when someone's not sitting right with you. You know that, right? So it's, you can fake it a bit. It's a practice. But if you truly, I like the way you said it, when it matches up with values, like if you're about really helping and trying to understand and really trying to fix, then that will actually become a habit, right?
So if we look at our organizations, we look at our families, and even maybe some of our settings, children, for instance, you'll see one child, whether it's their siblings or whether they're friends, who has a certain disposition. That's the word I'll use. If it's a personality, a little bit more caring, kind, considerate, a little more sensitive. Then another child is, not as much. Is this then a system of nature and nurture? Do you develop it? Do you hone it? He's on a roll today, Doctor.
It's a huge question. I think with children, I mean, everything is a learned behavior, and their brains are like sponges. So it might be learned, but we're learning something new every day. So when they can grow up to be adults in the working place, they could still learn those values if they want. So it's one of those things. It's kind of fluid in a sense.
There is a piece though that we also are brought into the world with some hardwiring, right? Like any parent will be able to tell you that there's so much, of course, nurturing from day one, but you can have four children that all turn out very differently, even if overall you've kind of raised them the same, right? Because there is a hardwiring slightly that is different, and that is the great debate of nature versus nurture. Right? So it's a combination of beautiful tapestry of both, basically.
And it's. Go ahead.
You guys are so
but it's, and so with that, it might look a little bit different depending on different personalities, but still possible most of the time.
And that's the exciting thing about EQ, emotional intelligence, is that if you look at the whole self, you have personality, you have IQ, intelligence quotient, then you have EQ. EQ is the only thing that you could really work on and improve, right? So IQ is pretty much set. That's the way in which your cognitive abilities are set, the hard wiring. Personalities, well, you kind of have some traits that you're inherently born with. You can work here and there. A significant traumatic event could possibly change someone's personality, but it's pretty much set. EQ is quite interesting, and that's why it's very important to work on it, because you have the ability to do so if you want to. So you have to be open to it, but you can work on EQ.
So then, if not, let me ask the perspective of, there's some of us who have, what you see is what you get, and they'll tell you straight up, there's, in the Cayman context, straight talk, bring no fallout. You don't need to worry about where you stand with me. These are the things we say. Then there are some people who will be a little more reserved. You can probably, if you pay attention, you'll probably know what they're thinking, but they hold off. So that person is holding back. Is that person exhibiting a sense of EQ? Are they practicing something? No, Miss Susan reminds us to have a break. You got a break on Miss Susan? Yeah, I was going to try to see if I could avoid that, but she caught my eye. I know I hear her whispering to me. So, the breaks are important. We appreciate the hard work of our sales department. Sometimes a little too hard. They're doing the breaks. Sorry, just kidding. It's the quarter to a break. Let's take that. But when we come back, let's ask about that then. How does that work, and how does that play into this whole scheme of things? It is you giving me a wonderful task this week. I'm enjoying it. Sets the tone for the month. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Congratulations, it's a boy.
During the greatest events of your life, whether or not you have the right health insurance coverage should be the last thing on your mind. That's why at Fidelity Health, we are committed to helping you get matched with the right plan to suit you and your family. We offer a range of plans to suit your budget, plus access to a network of quality care throughout the Caribbean and the USA. You can relax and enjoy life's greatest moments when you are covered with Fidelity Health. Call us today at 949-7822 for a free quote.
Summertime is when Cayman Airways full of people are travel to Jamaica. If you're late for checking your flight, you will lose your seat. Remember now, check-in time for Cayman Airways flight is 2 hours before departure. Make sure you're not late.
The following is a special announcement from the Cayman Islands Civil Service Association.
It's that time again. SIXA Back to School. Member Backpack and School Supplies Distribution will take place July 8th to the 12th, daily from 1 to 7 p.m. in Grand Cayman at the SIXA office located on the second floor of the Hospital Road Plaza above number 1 Shoe Shop.
And July 13th in Cayman Brac from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. at the Aston Ready Civic Center Medical Wing.
Members, you are being asked to kindly bring identification, and if you are collecting bags on behalf of another member, please bring a written signed note from that member with a copy of their ID as well. Remember, SIXA members backpack distribution July 8th to the 12th, daily from 1 to 7 p.m. in Grand Cayman at the SIXA office located on the second floor of the Hospital Road Plaza above number 1 Shoe Shop.
July 13th in Cayman Brac, 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. at the Aston Ready Civic Center Medical Wing. And to quote Anthony D'Angelo, develop a passion for learning. If you do, you will never cease to grow.
Headlines. With the latest headlines. All the news when you want it. Tune in to Radio Cayman for hourly headlines of the day's top stories.
One of Cayman's bright and shining young stars.
Local, regional, international.
Headlines.
Turning to international news. Updates on the hour between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. on weekdays. Radio Cayman News.
Headlines.
Your voice, your choice for today's biggest news.
Hi, my name is Neraya LeBlanc. I am the minister and evangelist to the West Bay Church of Christ on 24 Batabano Road. I would love to take this opportunity to invite you to experience God's family at West Bay for yourself. We are a caring congregation that strongly believes in reaching out beyond ourselves to spread the gospel of Christ. We also take great pleasure in ministering to the needs of our people in our community. As God's called out kingdom people, we are in the business of transforming lives for the Master's use. For more information, you can visit our website at westwaycichurchofchrist.org or call us at 946-9294 or 917-1809.
Declaring the word of the Lord. Cayman Islands Church of Christ presents Word of the Lord.
Word of the Lord, heard Sundays at 6:30 p.m. on Radio Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. And again, honestly, as much as I probably make it more challenging for public, thanks to Miss Susan. She makes it a lot easier. I mentioned sometimes that, my imagination locked into this part itself. I mean, this wonderfully, soundproof room that helps the acoustics. I imagine I'm sitting, somewhere on my sailboat just looking out at the North Sound. Got to have emotional intelligence, right? And a good imagination. Well, I'm grateful for monthly mental health matters as we look at mental wellness. Dr. Alexandra Borden, Ms. Dallas Drali, Ms. Natalie Baldwin, together with Dr. Anya Eden. I probably joke and jest about a lot of things, except the things that I'm serious about. I joke just about that. Life is about laughter and appreciation, love and respect, and being able to have, in my view, a sense of willingness to look at others and be as helpful as you can, accommodating, but to be honest, but to be respectful. So, prior to the break, the chat that we were having, who wants to kick us off this round? Yes, Ms. Dallas. Thank you, Dr.
Dallas. Yeah. Well, I think it was after your question that you kind of ended with about kind of that, right? Remind me what you said exactly. It was like a person coming in saying, "Take me as I am," right? Like I'm not changing, versus someone who's more reserved, maybe initially, and like it might not be a popular response, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. Basically, is that that first attitude, if you will, of I'm not changing. What you see is what you get. I believe is more on the lower end of the EQ spectrum, because that's someone who is not being vulnerable. They are having very rigid boundaries as well, and they're not engaging with maybe this person or the situation, saying, this is it, take it or leave it. It's more of that bravado coming out as well, rather than someone, let's say, who comes into a situation maybe a bit more reserved at first, but they're gauging, okay, can I trust you? Can I trust the situation? How I can be myself, but how far am I willing to go? This is someone who's aware of themselves, right? And that's the first step for EQ, self-awareness. I need to be able to trust myself first, then I can trust other people around me and set my boundaries accordingly, right? So right off the face of it, sometimes it might look different, but it's really looking underneath, right? That's what we're always going for, is what's going on underneath.
And then, of course, what then separates is that, okay, so you're aware, you're self-aware, we spoke about that part, but that next piece of EQ, which is critical and is important, is that relationship then. Okay, so now I'm going to be honest with you, and we were talking about that over the break, it's just about, okay, well, brutally honest, and that's who I am. Okay, that's who you are. But those who tend to have high EQ tend to be able to be brutally honest, but with respect. There's integrity there. The person walks away with like their integrity's intact, right? Because they felt as though I got some honest, constructive criticism, but you didn't attack my being, my essence in that same exchange. So that's where the high EQ piece comes in. It's like, oh, right, so you know how to have that relationship. You can be honest. You could be your true self, right? This is who I am. But you can do it in a way that just doesn't ruffle somebody else's feathers and get them. Yeah.
And I think to add on to that a little bit, I just was just thinking as you were talking, you have to also look behind of why someone's being honest and the intention of the honesty. Because a lot of times someone, of course, with a lower EQ might say, well, I'm just being honest, but it's a bad intention. And that goes along those lines with the empathy as well.
So no malice, not vitriolic. You but then is it then that the person or the environment is receptive to that level of honesty? You're presenting something, maybe it's a paper, maybe it's a critique of something, maybe it's a friend who's asking something, but you're not doing it maliciously, you're not doing it in an ulterior motive other than to be able to, okay. To Ms. Dallas's point then, forgive me, I'll use the Cayman parlance and context. Someone who says something and then another time they say what seems to be a contradiction. Oh, you're being two-faced. I don't know if that across the board in other places. is that different in this circumstance? Is that what it is, or are you just being receptive? Oh, well, the circumstances have changed. I thought this, like the politicians, for instance. Today they're saying, I support this, and then, well, I'm not so. We say they're waffling, or have they now changed because circumstances and information has changed, or they've been two-faced? Which is it?
It's a hard one, I think. Overall, there's a gray area there. It's not you can, over time, you might be able to see a bit more if someone's truly being two-faced, like if things are just completely contradictory, right? But I think there's a level of, how to behave out in public versus when you're at home, when you're in the workplace, when you're just in an intimate gathering with friends, when you're at a funeral home. There's different ways. That's emotional intelligence, again, is knowing how to act and how to manage yourself first in those different situations. So that I don't believe is being two-faced, right? But what personality traits are consistent across? That's what you have to look at then. If someone is being two-faced, again, it's really your personality is shifting so much, maybe from one situation to the other. I can't trust who you're going to be. That's very different.
But what could help in that situation? The fact that the person can say, "I'm sorry, I may have been wrong before." It's the acknowledgement of, things have changed, or the information I received after what I said before has changed, and I need to own up to it. So there's some personal accountability there. And then you're able to be two-faced to others, but you're able to support it in a very positive way to say, I was wrong before. And then that becomes humility. That is huge. That is an amazing leadership trait.
Humility before honor.
And that actually really builds trust. That's the thing.
That's exactly it.
When leaders are able to own that, and that's when they're being vulnerable, right? And they own, I made a mistake. That was misinformation that I had, or I messed up. They own it and then they correct it. That builds trust. And that's something that we need to understand. But often we're so afraid, whether it's in a leadership position or in a relationship, right? No matter where, we're often afraid to own our mistakes, to take personal responsibility. It's so scary for us to do that. But I coach people and tell people all the time in counseling, but through that is where your freedom is. As soon as we accept that personal responsibility, that self-awareness, self-regulation, then we're able to do something about it and change it. Then and only then can we do that.
There was a time not long ago we've seen that CEOs, for instance, were always in front of a press release, press conference, apologizing for something. We're going to take ownership of this, and our company's going to grow stronger. Maybe it's me, but I would see this thing, and I would read it, and I would hear it, and I'm thinking, man, you're lying through your teeth, man.
Well, action has to follow.
Right, sorry. That's what I was going to say. You have to then see what they do.
Right. Because the big coffee chain just last couple of days ago was almost the same apology as a couple of months ago. And
well, back to trust. Trust is trust but verify then, right? So words only go so far. Then we also have to see what's coming after that.
Yeah, well, they talked about values earlier. So whether it's values in an individual or values in a company or an organization, there should be something underlying that is consistent that will guide decisions made and how you act. If someone's being a complete chameleon, they're changing what they're saying and what they're doing for other motives. Which would be, so when we look at relationships, to me that'd be a red flag. It's someone who can't be trusted.
All right. I'm going to be guided by you, but if you'd allow me to ask, when we come back from our news break, I was thinking of the greater good. I was thinking of the notion of corporate sort of transition, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and even now how companies have been moving. There was a time when the corporate citizen was exhibited by its ethos. It invested in its community. The employees were important. The shareholders, all of the stakeholders. Then there came a time where it was, hey, we're going to make money, it doesn't matter what, and all these things. And now there's this seemingly shift by the new entrance into the workplace as to how this company is doing this thing, the environmental responsibility, the different values. What role is us as the new participants in this, changing phenomena with the EQ and the importance of the greater good? How does that play in? Could we put that on the table?
Of course we can.
All right. See the questions that we asked, boy? No, that's good. When we come back, we invite you to share, listen along, be a part of a discussion if you so choose. Didn't give you the number, but it's there. 949. Susan's number is 949-837, 949-6990, or toll free at 1-800-534-8255. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
The voice of the Cayman Islands. Radio K-Man.
Radio K-Man's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
With your latest headlines, I'm April Cummings. A 31-year-old Northside man is under arrest, suspected of driving under the influence, careless driving, and driving someone else's car without permission. According to police, he smashed a gray Porsche SUV into a building at the airport Friday evening around 10 o'clock. In international news, 11 years after letting billionaire Jeffrey Epstein off lightly with a secret deal, federal prosecutors are trying again. He's accused of abusing dozens of underage girls as young as 14. The 66-year-old hedge fund manager is charged with sex trafficking and conspiracy and could get up to 45 years in prison. Epstein was arrested over the weekend. Shaken residents are clearing up from two of the biggest earthquakes to rattle California in decades, as scientists warn that both should serve as a wake-up call to be ready when the long-dreaded big one strikes. California is spending more than $16 million to install thousands of quake-detecting sensors statewide that officials say will give utilities and trains precious seconds to shut down before the shaking starts. Former U.S. President Jimmy Carter and his wife Rosalind are marking their 73rd anniversary, approaching George and Barbara Bush as the longest married presidential couple in U.S. history. Those are your headlines from Radio K-Man's newsroom. I'm April Cummings.
Radio K-Man, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music, and more. You can find us. www.radiokman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio K-Man is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio K-Man.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us for our monthly mental health matters. I really say this. Hopefully it sounds as sincere as I intended. That this show has allowed me as an individual to become not just more sensible and sensitive, much more informed, much more studious, but engaged. And I think to approach our lives in such a way that hopefully, I don't do it, I know, I'm trying, I'm not there yet. We're looking at a financial planning. So down the road for retirement, for the education, hopefully we're listening to dietitians and physicians and personal trainers and how we can become physical healthy. But our mental wellness, hopefully we're doing that as well, whether we're meditating and doing yoga, whether we're reading the scriptures or, some other, doctrine or other way, so that we improve. Dr. Alexandra Borden, thank you every month for facilitating. Bring along, colleagues like Mr. Alistair Ali, together with Natalie Baldwin and Dr. Andy Eden, as we look at this, though. Before we get to the question, hopefully we remember the question. Is it then that discussions and panels like this, when we talk about mental wellness and the different topics that we've, sort of undertook over the last few years, is it only within the sphere of professionals like yourselves, or is this conversation for us as teachers and as parents, as just co-workers and colleagues? Let's divert for a second. Let me see.
I think that this is a conversation that needs to be had, just as Dallas brought up earlier in the show, the difference between mental health and mental wellness. That's still very taboo. And the more we can talk about these things with our peers, with our teachers, with others, the more we can normalize it and say it's important to take care of these things.
Okay, fair enough. Ms. Dallas, Dr. Borden?
Just saying across the spectrum, it's really important in every area that you just listed. EQ matters.
Yes.
That's what I want the message that for every listener to know. EQ matters in your life. And research has now been showing that, which is awesome. And I think, Dr. Anya, you started to mention that like in the beginning of really, even in the workplace, it's being shown as soft skills, why this really matters. I was looking at an article by the World Economic Forum earlier, and it actually lists the top 10 skills now in 2020 that employers are looking for. emotional intelligence is listed as number 6. In 2015, it wasn't even on the list. So now we're realizing what's really important. And it was saying that 70% of the time, people with lower IQ are outperformed by people with, or outperform people with higher IQs 70% of the time. So it's not our hard skills that matter as much. It helps you, of course, you have to pass the test. You have to get in the door. You have to get the job. It's EQ that is our success. It's our gateway to success in work and in our personal lives, with our children, with our spouse and significant others. EQ is really what makes the difference.
I would agree, and I would say it's not like we sit down and say, all right, so we're going to talk about EQ, emotional intelligence. There's so many pieces that make up what EQ is, and I think maybe amongst ourselves we're talking about it, but we understand it's a suite of things, right? So it's a suite of self-awareness. It's understanding I have emotions, you have emotions. How can we get our emotions aligned? So it's more of like, how do we have those conversations in our day-to-day with our friends? So it's not, I'm going to talk to you about EQ. It's like, why are you feeling that way? What's making you feel that way? And for me to do that with my son, like use your words and tell me what's giving you this tantrum, like what's happening. Use your words, because I know you can tell me when you want something. So it just, I think that's the conversation, and it's not just bucketing in EQ, and that's what we're going to talk about, So
we've been talking about it conceptually, which is important to understand and to educate, right, and raise awareness. But EQ on a daily basis, what that looks like, the first step is me taking care of myself. Right? Me managing my own stress. Am I sleeping well? Am I, meditating? Am I going to therapy? How am I handling my own self and my own emotions first and foremost? That's what it looks like on a day-to-day basis. And then the next step, of course, is how you manage that. And then how do you reach out to your friends or partner or kids? How are you? How are you feeling? What's going on? Why are you, I'm noticing you seem a little upset today. That's EQ. So we're talking about it again in all these different frameworks and research, but that's what it looks like day in and day out.
So then from the perspective of maybe the normal gathering of friends or coworkers, or even the prospective employer, we can, and we do, assessments to say, well, are you competent in this? I'm hiring an accountant. Do you have a degree? Do you have your profession? We can do that. And then when they get in the door and we work in, we talk about, they're not meshing with the team. They're not seem. So these soft skills, which I think are not soft, they're top priority. Other than the metrics that we're using increasingly for probably the more senior personnel, are there ways that in the interview process, in the evaluation, because we do it in our relationships, that we can evaluate to say, listen, okay, this is going to be a possible good fit. We can pick up on it. I think you said gut earlier. We know when some of us use that, and we go by it.
And there's actually structured ways in which you can go about doing that when you're interviewing. So from a company's standpoint, I can assess somebody based off how they answer certain questions that are predetermined, not just off the cuff. We actually prepare for an interview because we were hiring for a certain set of competencies, is the lingo in the workforce, right? Like competencies, we're looking for these competencies. Well, I'm working currently on developing a core competency framework for the organization I'm with, and in it are these things, without saying emotional intelligence.
It's there,
It's inherently in there that these are what we're looking for. And that's step one. Step two is then, how do I interview? How do we train and develop? How do we promote to it? And then it becomes a whole battery of things after. But it is structured. It's not just off the cuff and, All
right. Believing that and looking at some of the things, I was asking earlier about how my perspective and my perception, looking at companies from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, and even now, because I believe there's a very, very noticeable sort of change that is taking place. There's definitely a new paradigm without question. And some of the degrees that maybe students are taking and graduating with, that primarily they're moving away from these things and getting into the NGOs and the like. So if we look at EQ and we're seeing, are we now potentially going back to that environment where the greater good, this notion of it's no longer about the corporate benefit and everything? Ms. Natalie, I believe you want to jump in there.
I mean, I would hope so. That's what we want out of the corporate world. That it's it's about the greater good. It's not just about making money. But unfortunately, that is a lot of time with these big businesses. It's sometimes you have to make money, but you also have to make sure your employees are happy, can communicate effectively, you have good EQ. So I think it's, again, just a balance that hopefully we are going towards.
I think a lot of the bigger companies are still very focused on like the corporate environment, but some of the more innovative companies like Google are really investing in their human capital and developing, right? Because it's not just, so some of the bigger companies can't just work them to death and replace them, but really looking at the sustainability of the workforce. And so a lot of them have been doing trainings like in mindfulness, which is another hot one right now, which we covered a few months ago, and teaching their employees how to all of these different capacities, how to understand if you're under stress, what are some things contributing to your stress, what can you do that's more helpful with that. And especially because workplaces, and we see a lot of this here, are so diverse right now. Right? So last month we were talking about empathy and diversity. That even when someone says something or does something, it can be interpreted completely different by someone of a different culture or a different personality. Right. And so helping people to navigate that and supporting them in that, because there's naturally going to be misunderstandings and miscommunications. And so especially a company like Google that has employees from all over the world, and some are stationed around the world, helping them to work together most efficiently, because diversity, different personalities, different skill sets are what's going to create the most innovation. And that's ultimately what's most productive if you can work as a team. I think technology adds another level as well, because you lose so much information, right? So I think that's where a lot of the young people are struggling. The older people too. Maybe harder for us because I'm not
We're still young people.
Yeah. But you lose a lot of information. So people these days are not having to contend with 130 different nationalities on the island, all different mediums, and yes, there are emojis, but things can come across very differently in text versus speaking. So, and speaking
that's a
in
whole
person,
other subject.
Yeah, there's a lot of levels to it. I will say it's not easy, and it is something that all of us, even the most successful people, are always working on.
Absolutely, yeah. With that, this is a timeless statistic, if you will, that about 70% of communication is nonverbal. That's not changing, but our environment is, right? Yes. Our technological landscape of our current society, that's changing at a rapid pace, but our communication on a base is not changing. So when we're talking about something, 70% again is what's going on in our tone of voice, our body, our language, our eye contact, all these things. That's lost if we're just communicating via text or email and all that, which becomes really problematic in today's day and age. In the workplace, but also in relationships. I can't tell you how many times I have the conversation with couples about text messages, right, and WhatsApps, and a like on a post. These are the real issues we're facing today. Yeah. So this is where EQ blends with technology and social media. It's a huge problem, right? And I do generally advise that people stay away from those mediums to communicate about tougher issues, but a lot of people are more comfortable with that. Right? They'll use, we were laughing about this yesterday actually, that people will ignore phone calls, but they'll respond back in a text and say, message, hey, missed your call, what's up? My partner and I were laughing about that because we are in this day and age that people are more used to and more comfortable with the WhatsApp. And it's oh, they're calling. Why are they calling? Right. This is real. And this is more of an issue the younger and younger. I promise you, the younger and younger generations, it's more of an issue.
I feel old now.
And it's laughable, but it's also that's the reality of where we are. So we have to know how to engage with different generations and understanding how emotions are involved in all of this, and how do you then effectively communicate when the primary mode of communication is Snapchat for anyone under the age of 17, I believe.
Or Instagram, or...
But I heard that was old now. It's Snapchat now is what I've understood.
Well, as far as I know, I think it's still Instagram, but I might be old.
That's what I mean. I've been told by all the it's Snapchat is how they communicate.
See, I thought Snapchat was old.
Normal messages.
See, during the break, I'll figure out what these things are.
Okay, no problem.
I'm part.
And that's another thing. The youth, they're used to communicating via all this social media, but a whole other type of communication that you need to know is how to communicate via email, and what's a professional email to send, and that's something that's still not learned.
Right. Soft skills.
Yeah.
All right.
Not so soft.
Yeah. All right. Final break. When we come back, last segment, let's ask about development. Let's expound more on that, because I think it's something that we joke and jest, and some of us possess it to an extent. We have a level of, you're talking, ask you a question. Let me listen to you. We're sincere with that. Others do it because someone told us that. Pay attention when someone's speaking to you. Look me in the eye. Oh, don't scare me. Different things. So let's chat about that a little bit and see what takeaways we can have. All right. Final break of the segment, and then from 1:30 onwards, there'll be some open lines. So please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Wow, it seems I buy a battery every year.
Oh, for real? You should buy your car battery from Vantman. Their batteries are tough. I have a 3-year warranty on mine.
Oh, I know that trick. I take it back and they charge me a percentage of the price.
Hear me out, bro. Not at Vant Bobo. You can get a 3-year full warranty, no charge. And if they install it at Vant, it includes free towing and jumping service. And let me tell you, you will never have to get your hands dirty changing no battery.
Get Motorcraft Max or Plus battery for 20% off when it's installed by the service department at Vant Motors on Walker's Road. Now that's a deal you can get charged up about. Vant Motors, keeping you on the road.
The following is a special announcement from the Cayman Islands Civil Service Association.
It's that time again. SIXA Back to School. Members, Backpack, and School Supplies Distribution will take place July 8th to the 12th, daily from 1 to 7 p.m. in Grand Cayman at the SIXA office located on the 2nd floor of the Hospital Road Plaza above number 1 Shoe Shop.
And July 13th in Cayman Brac from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. at the Aston Ready Civic Center Medical Wing.
Members, you are being asked to kindly bring identification, and if you are collecting bags on behalf of another member, please bring a written signed note from that member with a copy of their ID as well. Remember, SIXA members backpack distribution July 8th to the 12th, daily from 1 to 7 p.m. in Grand Cayman at the SIXA office located on the 2nd floor of the Hospital Road Plaza above number 1 Shoe Shop.
July 13th in Cayman Brac, 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. at the Aston Ready Civic Center Medical Wing. And to quote Anthony D'Angelo, develop a passion for learning. If you do, you will never cease to grow.
Always separate debris from household garbage after a hurricane hits. Debris includes roofing materials, downed tree branches, and metals. All items of debris must be placed in separate piles to the front of the property or at a side that is easily accessible to collection trucks. Debris must be placed in a location that will not cause obstruction to roadways or come in contact with electrical lines. For more post-hurricane waste management tips, visit the DEH website at www.deh.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thanks again. Truly, honestly, it's a genuine honor to be able to sit here and facilitate, and especially on a monthly basis for mental health matters. Dr. Alexandra Warden, I say this often. It's great. We're getting this conversation. We're getting people to start to appreciate. Hopefully, I said maybe the first time, and I say it almost every time. Our friends, no offense to my American friends, who say when they come here, what do you mean you don't have a therapist? Everybody back home, has a therapist. We should have someone that we can talk to, that we can trust, who's professional, who's going to keep it confidential, but who's going to nurture and guide us so that we are healthy in all aspects. Hey, even my dog has a therapist, right? Well, Dr. Alexandra Warden, together with Miss Dallas Drally and Miss Natalie Baldwin, Dr. Anya Eden, as we look at our discussion, I was thinking prior to the break, this idea that EQ is important. We want to be technically savvy at what we're hired to do, whether we're laying blocks or whether we're, the plumber who making sure that it's going to work effectively, or we're the IT person or otherwise. But EQ, can we develop it? We can recognize it, we can nurture it, we see the benefits, but how do we develop it?
Well, I'll jump in. Just reminding of it's really those 4 steps of what we're looking at for EQ: self-awareness, self-regulation, social awareness, and then relationship regulation and management, right? The problem we run into is that we often start with trying to problem solve, and that's step 4, with the other person. Honestly, think about that at work or in your personal relationships. We're trying to just solve the problem, and that's step 4, right? We need to back up. So step 1 to improving your EQ is recognizing step 1. self-awareness. And that goes back to personal growth, right? Or whether it's through your own individual counseling or other methods, but self-care and self-awareness. So how are you feeling today? Recognize that. Notice what's going on for you in these conflicts. Why are you being triggered? What's really happening, right? We have to move away from a point of blame. That's a lower EQ of blame. This person is the problem. This situation is the problem, rather than really what's going on. I need to look internally first. That's step one to start to be able to work on and improve.
Which I would say is probably the hardest step.
Of course.
That makes you the most vulnerable. So.
It does.
Huh.
Yep.
I'm not vulnerable at all.
It does take that vulnerability, though. And I don't know if anyone, of course, I think here knows and probably loves Brene Brown as much as I do. Yes. And so to listeners, that's something really tangible and really approachable that I would say to check out if you're interested in this, is any of Brene Brown's resources. Her books or her TED Talk on Netflix is amazing. Or her Netflix special and TED Talk. Those are just really, she lays it out in a very easy and understandable way and helps people to really recognize what's going on for themselves.
And shout out, she's from Texas too. So
Go Longhorns. That's good. No, so self-awareness.
Yeah.
Now, before we go through the idea of self-regulation, I keep thinking back to the fruits of the spirit, self-control and patience and all those things. But you evaluate a circumstance, and from the technical aspect, maybe going through and you see, well, this is wrong, so you fix that. Those are the things that are the mechanical side you can fix. But if you evaluating it and your organization, this person isn't working, they don't have the technical competencies, this thing isn't working because maybe the door was off the hinges. If there are things that aren't, and you can maybe hold accountable, maybe you use the word blame, those are not working, then what?
So in like that instance, we see it often in teams, right? So it's like, well, you're not pulling your weight, and you and you and you and you. The only thing we really can control is ourself. That's the only thing we can't control. I can't control Dr. Bodden to do what she is supposed to be doing, right? I would expect and hope that she would, right? So with that being said, we would want, because ultimately, if you go and you keep complaining, as an employee, you complain to your manager over and over and over, you actually look like the complainer, firstly, and it goes against you. When in all truth and fact, you're just saying, pay attention over there because they're not doing what they need to do. How about saying, okay, what is that person, is my teammate swamped? Maybe there's something I could offer some assistance. Maybe I could take something off their plate. So you offer those solutions first. So be a little bit solutions-minded when you are seeing a problem, right? And then you can then offer that up to the manager at some point to say, I've tried, I've gone, I've asked, I've taken some of that load off. I'm still finding that there's some difficulties here. And it's how you're then going to portray what's going on to your manager. And there's that respect then, like, okay, well, at least you're not just putting the blame on the person. You've already reached out and you're coming to me with some sort of solution. So it reflects even better on you for taking that initiative, right? So it, again, where did it come back to? It came back to you making that decision to say, all right, I'm not going to put blame. I'm not going to be just another buzz in my manager's ears. I'm going to do something in my control. And if I can't, and it's out of my control at that point in time, escalate rather to whoever is going to help you out.
Wow.
So,
I mean, you guys could send me a bill. I should be probably here for it. But these are the circumstances that we face, whether in our personal relationships with our spouse or our children, with our colleagues or teammates on a sports team. These are things that we are on a daily basis.
And a lot of times it's going to be the self-reflection of yourself as well as your relationships. And a lot of times with clients, I look for patterns. Right? So especially if the same thing keeps happening, whether it's at work or at home, or if it's your stress levels, being able, and then that can help you figure out what's going on underneath. And a lot of the times, one of the questions I'll ask is, how's that working for you?
Yeah.
Right. And so if it's a coping skill or something that you're doing that's not helpful, right? What is going on? Why do you keep doing that? And what can we do differently? If it's something that keeps happening in relationships, right? Because some people's answer is they'll quit the job or they'll end the relationship. They start another one and it all happens again. Exactly. And so kind of stopping and stepping back and reflecting on what's going on and what's your role in what's going on and what can you do differently.
I think confrontation, some of us don't like it, so maybe with the co-worker we'll get a new assignment or we'll change jobs as opposed to dealing with the issue, we brush it under.
I think that's the same thing as feelings. You know, we don't want to deal with confrontation, so we're going to avoid it. We're going to avoid feelings, and that really ties into a lot of EQ because we have to be aware how we're feeling. We can have multiple feelings at once, and you go home and you ask your kids, "How was your day?" Fine. I hate that word. That irritates me. That word makes me angry. There's my feeling.
Yeah. I always say fine is not a feeling.
No, it's not a word.
It's not a feeling.
And so I think that starts with the self-awareness. If you can start showing self-awareness to others by saying how you're actually feeling or saying just little things like, "Oh, I'm a little hangry right now. I need some chocolate." You know?
Well, and just because you are strengthening those skills doesn't mean it's always going to work. Yeah. And that's the hardest part with communication is that even if you do everything you're supposed to do, there's two people, right? And so that's where that's where the EQ is helpful to navigate. If you can tell that the message is not being heard in the way that you want it to be received, being able to adjust or get some feedback from them. You know, that was a much different reaction than I was expecting. I'm wondering what you heard or what you think I'm asking you for.
So relationship management, whether it's the better half or you know, someone says the better 9/10, but whether it's a personal relationship or your co-worker, maybe it's an employee that you're sort of the manager and responsible for. The frustration, how's your day? Fine. Parents relate to that. Like, so we try to take some sort of input from somewhere and how do we ask the question, how do we engage, but there's a level of frustration. Is there a point where that angst, that frustration, that thing that you're not getting through, you use your EQ, you're aware of it, but it's still a brick wall? And then how do you get to that, beyond that impasse?
Well, and I'd say you got to kind of step back and see, why are they saying fine? Are they actually angry, or is it that they don't have the words? A lot of times, even with adults, I start with different feeling words and what different feelings are. Especially in the Caribbean, a lot of times angry is safe and angry is what we are, or just fine. We don't really talk about being sad, being frustrated, irritated, you know, angry, upset, you know, nervous, anxious, sad, depressed. There's so many different words, ecstatic, enthusiastic, and love. Like, there's so many different words. But when you're stuck with just sad, angry, and fine, it's, you know, your repertoire is limited, and so that's harder to problem solve because you don't really understand what's going on.
And that's happening culturally and because of gender as well, like our socialization. Overall, men do have, and this is documented, like it's research-based, men often have a lower vocabulary when it comes to emotional expression. And also then there's the cultural piece that plays into that as well. So then if you have both of those factors, kind of, we can really struggle. And I just wanted to comment, a word that I will say I learned as a feeling word since moving here 4 years ago is normal.
Normal.
I'd ask people how they're feeling, and they go, normal. Yeah. And I never heard, like, that was new to me. And I was like, what does that mean? And this was not one I mean, this is so many people would say, normal, I'm normal. Like, what's that about? So we have to really get curious. And that's something I think that you'd mentioned briefly, Natalie, earlier. But the curiosity is the bridge, right? And that's the bridge to empathy, is getting curious with somebody else's feelings. Like, why are they feeling that way? We have to come away from this place of, like, judgment, thinking that we understand it. That's like this top down, like looking down, I think that I understand you, versus let me try and get down to your level and understand what you're feeling first. Get curious, then we can actually be empathetic, because everybody can relate. Like the last time that you were upset, the worst thing that you can hear from somebody else is, it's not that bad. Right? Or downplaying it in some way. Isn't that the most that makes you angrier? Like, you're steaming from something. It's like, well, just do this. There's someone's trying to tell you, it's really not that big of a deal. Like, why don't you just do that? And you're like, I just don't understand. And then it escalates. That's because we're lacking empathy. We first need, whether it's with your kid, your partner, at work, you need to validate. That's tough. Like, so, I get that. That sounds really frustrating.
So before we go to the phones, isn't that a song? Let's get curious. Is that a song?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe the question about, you had asked the question about physical touch earlier.
Right,
and I say that really depends.
Right.
It can be used appropriately. It can help, but other times it can cross boundaries.
You don't have to be emotionally connecting to someone. You don't have to use physical touch to do that. I can be fully there with somebody emotionally and not have to physically engage at all.
And just to add on, instead of how was your day, I'll say, tell me something you did today, because then they will answer it in a different way instead of just saying fine.
All right.
Yep.
Can I invite you to don your headsets? We do have a caller, Dr. Alexandra Borden, Miss Alice Riley, Miss Natalie Baldwin, and Dr. Anya Eden are our guests. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon, Dave.
Hey, my friend, good afternoon. How are you?
Okay, and good afternoon to you guests also.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
I have 2 questions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you all are able to answer it, but I hope so.
Me too.
What causes a person to get Alzheimer's disease, and what can we do to prevent from getting that disease?
Well, thank you, sir. I'll leave it to the guests if they so choose, but we'll have, other guests on who are medical doctors that we can talk about. Like, that's one of the things that come up. But only if you all wish to weigh in. So that was he said that was going to ask that question and hang up. Yeah.
So we actually covered this a few months ago.
Yes.
And so we do have a whole hour and a half talk show about this on drbodden.com under Mental Health Matters. So there's a lot of different factors that contribute to Alzheimer's as well as other kinds of dementia. And there we talked about a lot of it is going to be managing stress, right? Physical exercise actually is one of the leading protective factors that they talked about for decreasing the risk of being able to get Alzheimer's. And
if I may, just because I love to read this stuff, and if you believe the source that you're reading has a degree of credibility, it's not like one spectator says 99 points to the bottle of red, but that's a different story. Seemingly now our exposure to our technology and the moving lines on the screens and the way the brain is being coded there's a concern long term as to how it's changing. So some of the things, but yeah.
Well, and the EQ stuff that we're talking about today will help you better manage your stress and will help to improve relationships. And social support is actually one of the biggest protective factors for everything.
All right. Now, I was going to ask, maybe I'll beg Ms. Susan for a few seconds more. We were talking earlier about the angst that we may feel and the new word normally discovered 4 years ago and the challenges that we face within our, I use the word relationships, whether that's, otherwise. This idea that the person is trying to determine what's going on. It may be with the child, it may be with the spouse, it may be something else. And the response is, you talk too much, you ask too many questions, and instead of some sort of resolution, there's more conflict. Now, where does that fit in with the EQ and the whole notion of, how do we get to the root of this thing? Because there is an issue, fine, normal, just deal with it. That would create more frustration. Dr. Anya?
I think I could speak from a personal standpoint there.
Thank you.
So what I find with my husband is that he likes to have time. He wants the time to decompress. He wants to think about what he wants to say back to me because I have no problem with words. And I probably lay a lot on, right? So I had to learn, again, how did I have a piece to play? I had to learn to, I need to step back because he's unable to answer me. He's unable to tell me anything at that time. So I have to step back to allow him the time, but with the understanding that, I'm not going to come back to you. I'm expecting you to come back to me. And so can we pick back up where we left off? Or, I was thinking about it and that's what I look for. But again, I can't do anything with somebody, nor can anybody if nobody's open to resolution and solving. So at some point, again, it comes back to yourself and saying, all right, what is my piece? And my piece is he needs the time. I had to learn that because I'm one that I want to resolve real quickly. I want to resolve. But
I can relate as a marriage and family therapist. God bless my partner because believe me, he has to put up with everything that I've learned. I'm like, no, we need to talk about this, right? Oh, yes, exactly. Every new relationship assessment that comes out, I'm like, we're going to take this thing. And so, but that's the back to the first piece of EQ is self-awareness and regulation. So knowing your partner's needs, for example, and if they are different from your own, being able to self-regulate. That's where people run into problems in relationships is, I can't regulate my own emotions then, and I'm going to be forcing them onto you when maybe your partner needs that space and time to process. And that's EQ says, I'm going to be okay with that, even though that's not the way that I would like to do it, but I'm going to be able to step back and take moments and wait for the other person to respond.
And that shows high EQ just by being able to, pause and reset.
Dr. Warden, you give me a big, tall order to fill.
I want this done by next month.
No, but no, it's good. Thank you very much. And as we get ready to wrap it up, maybe initial thoughts and then closing thoughts. This notion that we have different expectations in our relationships, whether it's business or personal, whether it's with our spouse or siblings or children, and how do we respond? But then if they don't get back to us, whether we give them a week or a month or the third word song, a day or a year, we expect something in return. And at some point, if there isn't that level of, I guess, sort of response, there's more frustration. And then it can lead to unresolved issues and complications. And next thing we're in Ms. Dallas's office. No, I'm just kidding.
But it's a good thing to work those things out.
That's what I was going to say. Is that, both people have to be interested and invested. And if not, or if there are difficulties still, having a third party, like a therapist, can be helpful to work it through. Especially if the communication, there's a lot of blocks there.
Yeah. I had a joke, but I'll leave that for now. Susan reminds me, not all your jokes are funny. I laugh at them. They work for me. All right. Ms. Dallas, start with you. Our takeaways, your final thoughts, and then, ladies, if I can, respectfully, maybe ask and invite you each for whatever you wish to share. And then Dr. Warden. All right. So, Ms. Dallas?
Yeah, well, thank you. I just, as a closing, we've covered so many things today, but as you can tell, this is truly just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much that we could devote another show to in each different area that we've even just touched on today, right? This is just an intro, and I really encourage people, if they're interested in seeing like how they can improve their own EQs. That's something that we can all do. That's also I wanted to mention this is not a check mark, you have arrived type of a thing. Oh, I've got high IQ, I'm good. EQ, I'm good. It's something that we're always growing in. We should be, right? This never ends. So wherever you are on the journey is where I would encourage people to look at how can I get just next to the next step. What do I want to focus on first? And again, that's step one, that self-awareness and regulation. And if I can I'll let listeners know, Infinite Mind Care, we do a monthly talk at Books and Books. And this is the topic for this month too. They coordinated so nicely today. So I'm going to be doing a talk on July 20th with my coworker Marissa, and we'll be at Books and Books at 2:00. If you're interested to come and talk face to face about this topic, it's an hour casual, just come and, enjoy and have a conversation. Books and Books at 2:00. So thanks very much for having
Saturday,
us.
Right?
I'm very passionate about this topic. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's a Saturday, I think, right?
Saturdays, yes.
Yeah. All right. Is Taya Lounge?
Yes. So I'm with the Crisis Center, and I work with at-risk youth, but also children. So I love to talk about feelings, and I think self-awareness is the most important, especially modeling that behavior for your teens and for the youth. So I'd like to challenge everyone out there to maybe just try to recognize some feelings you have. You don't have to say them, but just recognize, because I think something that we don't realize, we can have 5 or 6 feelings all at once and not realize it. Like right now, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I'm excited, I'm tired. I could probably tell you all my feelings, but we don't have. But it's okay to recognize those, and then if you feel self-aware and comfortable saying those, and it's good to model that behavior for our youth. I would also just like to put a little shout out to with the Crisis Center. We have a kids helpline. It's a free toll-free number. It's 649-KIDS, 649-5437. So anyone that wants to talk to under 18 more about EQ, about feelings, it's just a safe place for children and youth to talk to someone.
That's awesome.
Dr. Anya.
Some final thoughts. Well, emotional intelligence, it's everywhere. It's in your personal life. It is in your professional life. So you can't really run and hide from it. And emotions and feelings that we've talked about, I mean, we may feel as though it's fluffy stuff, but it is quite powerful. And if we realize how powerful that is, and you hone in on it, and you develop it, and you practice it, and you use it, it's amazing how your relationships may become even stronger than you can imagine. So get on, educate. I mean, hopefully this is the start of some listeners going on and learning more about it, but there's definitely great resources on Island, and you have the power to actually manage your own emotional intelligence, because it's not set in stone. You can improve it.
There you go. Dr. Warden.
All right, yeah, so a lot of the information will be shared today. I also have an EQ test that you can quiz yourself and see where you're at.
I took it last night. Thank you for sharing that.
Awesome.
That was cool.
So that one's on Facebook, and I'll put it onto drbodden.com as well as all of our information. And so I just want to say thank you to Radio Cayman for having us on again. If anyone is interested in therapy or additional services, our information will be listed on the website. There's also free services available from the government through the Counseling Center. That's available at 949-8789. They have walk-ins most days. And in emergency, there's always the emergency room at HSA. And there'll be a psychiatrist on call there should there be need for that.
Thank you all very much. I really appreciate starting this week off with this such positive energy. Such wonderful people. If it's not inappropriate, may I say publicly how wonderful you guys look. Not just, just awesome. And I believe this is a great society. And the fact that we can talk about these things, the fact that we start to value our health and be all encompassing. I trust people will not see any stigma chatting with someone who's professional about an issue. It could be, nothing in a sense, but if you don't address it, it could become something significant. Absolutely. That feeling you're having, what chance someone has had that feeling is having that feeling. Don't ignore it. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So check us out, go on our YouTube site, but certainly look at drborden.com for it. Now, when we come back, it's some open line. Hopefully my good friend is out there waiting, because company, somehow loves misery. Misery loves company. I'm not sure. We're going to have fun. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
What do you love more than summer? Extra flights between Grand Cayman and Jamaica with Cayman Airways, of course. Cayman Airways has added extra flights weekly for travel between Grand Cayman and Kingston this July and August. Visit family and friends in Jamaica or send for them to visit you in Cayman. But hurry, these extra seats will sell out fast, so book yours today. Remember now, check-in time is 2 hours before departure. Call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or book online at CaymanAirways.com.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
I have various items coming from different suppliers that I need to ship to Cayman. Do you offer consolidation?
Yes. Seaboard Marine offers consolidation for full and less than container loads. We can hold your packages at our Miami warehouse until everything arrives and ship it all in one go. And we have the best rates to Grand Cayman. Visit SeaboardMarine.com for more information.
Shipping shore to shore.
The following is a special announcement from the Cayman Islands Civil Service Association.
It's that time again. SIXA Back to School. Member Backpack and School Supplies Distribution will take place July 8th to the 12th, daily from 1 to 7 p.m. in Grand Cayman at the SIXA office located on the second floor of the Hospital Road Plaza above number 1 Shoe Shop.
And July 13th in Cayman Brac from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. at the Aston Ready Civic Center Medical Wing.
Members, you are being asked to kindly bring identification, and if you are collecting bags on behalf of another member, please bring a written signed note from that member with a copy of their ID as well. Remember, SIXA members backpack distribution July 8th to the 12th, daily from 1 to 7 p.m. in Grand Cayman at the SIXA office located on the second floor of the Hospital Road Plaza above number 1 Shoe Shop.
July 13th in Cayman Brac, 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. at the Aston Ready Civic Center Medical Wing. And to quote Anthony D'Angelo, develop a passion for learning. If you do, you will never cease to grow.
Radio Cayman's Breeze Fusion 5K Walk Run is going to be back. Registration are now open at www.caymanactive.com, or you can stop by our studios. Race day will be Saturday, November 2nd, and it's going to be bigger and better with the new 10K run for half marathon trainers as well as the 5K walk run. This year's funds will go to support the Central Scranton Park and also the NCVO. Registration is only $15 if registered by September 30th. And all registrants enter to win a Cayman Airways voucher. The Breeze Fusion 5K 10K walk run is going to go down Saturday, November 2nd. Don't delay. Register today.
Don't forget to tune in every Monday through Friday for the 7 a.m. news, brought to you by Cayman National Bank, proudly serving the Cayman Islands since 1974. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs.
89.9 Radio Cayman helps you to weather the storm during this hurricane season.
One of the most crucial elements of hurricane preparedness is storm awareness. During the season, it is of utmost importance to pay attention to the latest local weather forecasts, as hurricanes do not suddenly form or strike. There are various methods of advanced notification. Utilizing such may be the difference between a favorable outcome and disaster. Both television and radio serve as excellent mediums with up-to-the-minute storm path information in the wake of a hurricane. Another method of tracking a hurricane may be only arm's length away. Your smartphone or tablet can be your most valuable tool before, during, and after a storm, providing countless numbers of apps with crucial hurricane information. Many apps allow you to track storms with moving radar and satellite imagery, plus offer alerts, current conditions, forecasts, advisories, and even video.
This hurricane preparedness tip was brought to you by your community radio station, Radio Cayman 89.9 FM.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm honored that my good friend Mr. Mario Rankin sits in with us. Appreciate the company in the afternoon. We're going to have some open line. We talk about many things. Miss Susan is standing by as the phones ring and she answers and patches the calls through. We get a chance to chat. Mario, thank you very much for coming and keeping my company, man. Nothing like a Monday afternoon if you got good company.
No problem, man. Anytime. My pleasure.
All right. Well, the phone lines are 949-8037, 949-6990. Of course, Flo has a toll-free number for us, 1-800-534-TALK. 1-800-534-8255. And then there's a WhatsApp, 925-3261. When Miss Susan tells me that there's a caller, we'll put it through and we'll chat with you. And as you were just perhaps joined us earlier for a month in mental health matters, the idea of emotional intelligence. Well, Mario, we can get into much things, but I was just thinking, as we were transitioning from segment to segment,
right?
This idea that as a populace, are we cognizant of the different things that are happening? Not just the 100 and we don't even know that number anymore. Is it 130 plus nationalities?
Right.
Are we cognizant of whether the population is 70,000 or 100,000?
Mm-hmm.
And why I'm saying that is not for it to be political. It's not even to engage in a banter that would hopefully, that makes interesting radio. It's about the real things that some of us will share privately and confidentially, and so carefully, because we don't want to offend other people's sensibilities. We don't want it to be political. We don't want it to be this thing.
Yeah.
But we're talking about it, all of us, at some point.
Yeah, it is, and it's really hard for it not to come across as political,
Mm-hmm.
simply because when you see most things, if not all,
Mm-hmm.
things that affect us is done from a legislative standpoint. So when we talk about, one thing I can say that if the consensus numbers are true, we do have 50,000 plus, but it feels like 100,000.
Right.
When you traffic and the hustle and bustle. But
could I ask then you, and I'm not, please forgive me, I'm not asking to put you on the spot, but I'm just asking the question, and hopefully, as people are busy and they're listening, they'll be inclined to weigh in.
Mm-hmm.
There's a guy who will always, one of these days I'm going to call in, but I don't want to call in. And he gives all these reasons, legitimate reasons, not reasons that we haven't heard from other people. But he said one time he made a call to the show and he was talking about something. I won't say what it was because then it might create an argument within the organization. But it wasn't that he was getting flack from politician or spouse it was just within his organization. He made a comment about something and I thought, wow, it becomes that close to home. So in that context, I want to ask, we see I call them the tunnels. Now, I don't know what other word to use because there are walls on either side and you go through. It looks like a tunnel, whether it's 1,000 feet long or less. It's a tunnel.
It is what it is.
Right. During the initial discussions about it, how they were going to be engineered, it seemed that well, at least to me, as I was, sort of shared with the information I was shared, they could support structures above, right? And it was going to be conceptually, from sea to sea, right?
100%. And the regardless of what the ingenuity of it is, one need to ask the question, why do you have a tunnel?
Okay.
In that particular spot, which is very strategic. So how it's built is one thing, but the purpose of it from the beginning, because you can't say that we had that amount of people, foot traffic, crossing the road there at that particular juncture, that you could justify an overhead walkover like we had years and years ago over at the Hyatt.
Right.
And they had a reason for that, because you had the main land side of Hyatt and then you had the beach side of Hyatt, right? And a lot of their customers, my bad.
Yeah, the hotel guests, right?
Hotel guests,
right?
We're moving back and forth. So the bridge overhead walkway was justifiable because of the people walking from the hotel onto the beach. Now, again, like I said, if we look down to why that tunnel or those tunnels were built, for me, the minute I saw it going up, I knew exactly what the future plans would have looked like, simply because what other reason would you build a structure like that, period, in that area? Because you didn't add any more lanes,
right?
So you didn't create any better traffic flow.
Well, with that and with their consent. So the people who may have seen me this morning talking to some people, pay attention to what we say, not who I was with. Well, hopefully, I won't get in trouble, but with their consent. So we have the conversation about different things. And one of them said, in the very early days, did not realize what was transpiring. Yes, was at the business meeting where the premier said, we're going to pass bespoke legislation. You're sitting, you're not paying attention. You hear, but you're not really absorbing it. And then, it's a little bit late now because it's built. You can't undo. But here are questions that have sort of been asked now that may have been asked a little bit too late. Well, if there are two tunnels, and that's the only way to and fro, at those places, how do you move people and goods and different things if they can't go through the tunnels? How do we get it back and forth? What if something happens? And he asks the question, is it a sense of arrogance on the part of people, whether it's the government, the politicians, the developers, the society, where you don't need to know, this doesn't affect you. Big boys are talking and playing here, mind your business. Or is it that we figure this out as we go because we got more money than sense? What is it?
Well, I think it is nothing different from what we've always been, reactive.
Okay.
If we can go as far back as emancipation, we've always been a reactive society. We've never been seriously proactive about anything because, like you said, we make it up as we go along. We're winging it. And when the day come that we have to transport something from one side of the island to the west side, and those tunnels create some level of hindrance, we're going to have to try to figure out a way around it, as opposed to having that as a part of the master plan to begin with. Now, for anybody to believe that any organization would have went through the elaborate build-out of those tunnels just to simply have people walk on them, then that's our fault.
Right.
Because under no circumstances, seeing the magnitude of engineering that went into those tunnels, no one could ever assume that they weren't planning on building something above those things. So for me, hearing that they're going to put something on top of it now is no surprise. Right. The fight should have been not to build them at all. So,
but yet
because no tunnels, no buildings on the tunnel, right? Now that you have a tunnel, which is very unsightly for the West Bay Road corridor, it doesn't fit in at all. Which is why we need to have strategic planning policies and development and sustainable development policies in place. There should be some areas of Cayman where a certain type of architecture can't be built, and that's just my personal opinion.
All right. So I would, and I appreciate. And I certainly welcome you accepting the invite to sit and join. I say this not just to be jovial, but I say this sincerely. I hope that by you sitting there next to me doesn't get you in trouble. Right?
I honestly thought that I'd gotten I thought they'd put me on a sabbatical.
No, but the thing is that I'm blessed. I'm very fortunate, very grateful that I get to go some places, listen to some people, and hear them share, sometimes very confidentially, certain things. But also to hear the person who may be at the helm of the organization, whether it's an organization with hundreds of people, whether it may be an organization of one. He's the only person in charge of himself, right? The same sentiments being expressed by so many different people.
Right. One of the hot topics now is the 25 and above story buildings.
I wrote it down, so I want to ask you about that.
And I got to say this. And for me, right, I try to look at things from a holistic standpoint, and I try to weigh in on all of the different issues that I think might happen. Now, check this out. If we had proper planning and strategic policies in place from before the development boom, and I ain't talking about now, I'm talking about from way back.
Right.
Think about this for a second. We got multiple condo complexes on the West Bay Road, and majority of those are 5 stories, right, which used to be the allowed limit, with the maximum. Now, I have a question for the general public, for everybody, because we have to be very open-minded when we talk about different projects like this. So think about this: if we had allowed 25-story buildings from in the 80s, as opposed to having 5 separate condo complexes in a line, you could have had 5 in one building and would have preserved most of the beach. Wow. You wouldn't have all of the beach taken up. Now, again, I think that there should have been proper planning in place that didn't allow people to build on the beach. And the reason why I say that is not because we don't want them to have in this sense of entitlement that they demonstrate now, but for the natural evolvement of the beach, the erosion and the sand moving and shifting naturally. When you put something unnatural in a natural environment, it changes the whole dynamics of it. So that's why you see a lot of erosion on a lot of the areas where walls are built too close to the beach. So for me, I think if we had mindful planners in the 60s, we would have had strong policies that we don't mind you building on that corridor, but you're going to be on the other side of the road.
Right.
So we're going to preserve the beach for the beauty that it is, so that everybody can fully enjoy it. Now we have all these big condos and hotels on the beaches, and in some areas it's eroding, and it'll never come back unless you tear that building down and put it back in its natural state. Now, and we know that never ever happen. So my argument is this: would you rather have 5 5-story condo complexes on the beach, or 1 25-story complex on the beach and save the rest of that land? So that's how I look at certain things. Now, again, if we had the proper planning and development policies in place, we wouldn't be having this debate about 25 stories, because we would have had a proper plan in place. Say, look, that doesn't fit into what the Cayman Islands look like. You can build what you want, but here's where you have to build it, and here's what it has to look like. And
so is it then too late now?
I think so, because, I mean, what I say, hold on, let me just rephrase that. It's never too late.
Okay.
We can put proper planning in place now so that we don't see what's happening on West Bay Road happening in our eastern districts or in our sister islands.
Okay. And something I'll ask us, we'll talk about it now, we'll do our news, and we'll come back and we'll ask people to weigh in. Just out of respect, you referenced 25 stories and up, right? We heard, I believe...
Because we hear it from 80 to 50.
50,
I don't
right?
know. We don't know what the number is.
That's exactly what I'm asking. So the Honourable Premier mentioned 50 plus. We heard the Honourable Speaker in his New Year's message said 50. We see 80 stories in regional paper attributed to the Honourable Speaker.
It's sad that we have politicians who have decided that they want to build political emblems to put their names on so that they can go down in history book at the expense of the people and at the expense of the Cayman Islands environment. And it's sad that in 2019, with the wealth of knowledge that we have and we have access to, and new technologies and new methodologies and doing certain things to have less impact on an environment, we choose to go the 100-year-old route. Let's destroy the harbor, let's build a port, let's build 80-story buildings and destroy everything else. I just don't get why we're in that frame of mind.
Well, I understand that even consideration to 150 stories, some are concerned about in a hurricane zone, but so from 50 to 150 stories. When we come back, this idea of our planning review, the notion that maybe we missed the boat, maybe we still have an opportunity.
We haven't missed the boat.
All right, let's see. 949-8037 or 949-6990. or you can call us toll free, 1-800-534-8255. We're going to pause, Ms. Susan. We're taking a news break. When we come back, Mario Rankin is going to sit here with us. And guess what? We're going to say some things. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
There are reasons to be a Logic customer. There's lightning-fast internet connectivity. There's the great overall customer experience. And now, you can improve your Wi-Fi connectivity with Logic Boost Wi-Fi for free. With Boost, you can extend your freedom to stream, game, and download seamlessly anywhere in your home, like your patio or your underground lair if you have one. Sign up now for any Logic Bundle package and get free Boost Wi-Fi for a limited time. Visit logic.ky for details.
Summertime is when Cayman Airways full of people are travel to Jamaica. If you're late for checking your flight, you will lose your seat. Remember now, check-in time for Cayman Airways flight is 2 hours before departure. Make sure you're not late.
Continuing the Caymanian tradition.
Let Cora keep my ground so clean.
The heart and soul of the Cayman people. Thank you for keeping the culture alive.
Spread the news every day. From East End to Georgetown, down into West Bay.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman.
Radio Cayman's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
With your latest headlines, I'm April Cummings. 6 medical evacuations between the 3 islands were carried out by the RCIPS's Air Operations Unit in June using the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service's recently acquired helicopter. Police say all of the medical evacuations were completed safely due to the efforts of the AOU crew members and the emergency medical services staff working in tandem. In international headlines, the British government today hunted for the source of a leak of diplomatic cables from Britain's ambassador in Washington that branded President Donald Trump's administration as, quote, dysfunctional and inept. British officials are embarrassed by the publication of Kim Darroch's unflattering assessment, but more alarmed that sensitive confidential information has been leaked, possibly for political ends. The leaked cables were intended for senior UK ministers and civil servants. An official believes the mole will be found among British politicians or officials rather than overseas. Iran today began enriching uranium to 4.5%, just breaking the limit set by its nuclear deal with world powers, while it is still seeking a way for Europe to help it bypass U.S. sanctions amid heightened tensions between Tehran and Washington. The acknowledgement by the spokesman of the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran to the Associated Press shows that the Islamic Republic is trying to increase pressure on those still in the 2015 nuclear deal. It also comes just days after Iran acknowledged breaking the 661-pound limit on its low-enriched uranium stockpile, another term of the accord. Those are your headlines. From Radio Cayman's newsroom, I'm April Cummings.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
The Breeze Fusion is back Saturday, November 2nd.
Bigger and better.
Now featuring a 5K walk run and a 10K run for half marathon trainers. Join the fun and help raise funds for the Central Scranton Park and the NCVO. Save the date or register now at CaymanActive.com or at Radio Cayman Studios. Registration is only $15 if registered by September 30th. And all early registrants enter to win a Cayman Airways voucher.
The Breeze Fusion 5K, 10K walk run.
Saturday, November 2nd. Traffic congestion is bad for your mental health, bad for your wallet, and bad for the environment. Alternative commuting habits are the solution. Cycling, walking, busing, or carpooling will help save you money, benefit your health, conserve energy, and help the environment. Do your part. Visit the Ministry Facebook page for details of plans for bicycle lanes, the latest bus schedules, and be an energy advocate.
The following is a special announcement from the Cayman Islands Civil Service Association.
It's that time again. SIXA Back to School. Member Backpack and School Supplies Distribution will take place July 8th to the 12th, daily from 1 to 7 p.m. in Grand Cayman at the SIXA office located on the second floor of the Hospital Road Plaza above number 1 Shoe Shop.
And July 13th in Cayman Brac from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. at the Aston Ruddy Civic Center Medical Wing.
Members, you are being asked to kindly bring identification, and if you are collecting bags on behalf of another member, please bring a written signed note from that member with a copy of their ID as well. Remember, SIXA members backpack distribution July 8th to the 12th, daily from 1 to 7 p.m. in Grand Cayman at the SIXA office located on the second floor of the Hospital Road Plaza above number 1 Shoe Shop.
July 13th in Cayman Brac, 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. at the Aston Ruddy Civic Center Medical Wing. And to quote Anthony D'Angelo, develop a passion for learning. If you do, you will never cease to grow.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. Thanks for joining us. It's the start of another wonderful week and the first non-public holiday Monday. And the last public holiday for a few months was last Monday. So we're going to enjoy the rest of these days as the summer continues. In the studio for, my good company and good friend Mario Rankin. Mr. Rankin, we do have a call online. Let's see what we say. Miss Susan, good afternoon. Welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Hey, good afternoon. Am I on there?
You are indeed. Welcome to you, sir.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Dwayne. Good afternoon to your guest. I think it's Mario.
Yes, sir.
Mario Rankin, yes, sir.
Yeah. I just want to second his thoughts there. Found it very interesting, and it's a very timely topic.
Yes, sir.
Because in all essence of being, I just don't understand what's happening with our politicians in Cayman these days. It seems like we're hell-bent on destroying the future instead of trying to preserve something for the next generation.
Yep. So true.
I honestly would have expected better from the members of government, especially those that are in the powerful seat. I can understand some of the junior ones. They're just learning.
Yes, sir.
But unfortunately, I don't know if the learning is going to rub off on them. And I really don't mind saying what I have to say because I have no access to grind with anybody. And all of them know that I'm straight up.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is utter foolishness. And I've said this before. When we talk about going to a fifth-story tower in Cayman, I just wonder if they've stopped to think that right now, hotels on the 7 Mile Beach cannot even be accessed by our fire equipment that we currently have on island. That's a number one concern. And it's something that they should be very concerned about it at this point in time, even more so like they should be concerned about the dump.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yes, sir.
The magnitude of incompetence that is displayed from our government is really unsurpassed anywhere. They talk about Donald Trump building his wall. The man has a method to his methodology, but ours don't seem to. No. We cannot, on this little 2x4 island, be Dubai or be New York City or San Francisco or any other place that develops as such.
Yep.
And the quicker that they try and get that through their heads and ego and see where the futility of this whole thing is going to end, I don't really understand where they're going.
If I may ask, though, when we look at whether it's the politicians, their handlers, or others who are trying to propose certain things, and you said 50 stories, we've heard 80, we've heard rumors, or maybe as much as 1/5 or so. In the absence of information, there's a lot of conjecture and speculation. But can I ask then, we as the electors, the voters, the wider populace, what is our role? Where do we weigh in to say, okay, as politicians, as the government of the day, as whichever, are you thinking of this? Are you considering? You referenced the safety of the height of the buildings. Some people have asked, well, if you do a building that is 50, 100 stories high, that amount of people in that space is going to mean that when they come down to the beach, for instance, now you have 10 stories times 10. Will you have 50 times more people occupying that space, even though the footprint is that much less?
Well, that's just the logistics of it. We cannot accommodate that. We cannot. You realize that we are at our maximum capacity for what we can really handle. They're talking about a port in Georgetown, and we are at our maximum capacity for what we can handle down there. We have no infrastructure. We're not growing another Stingray City. We're not growing another Sandbar. We don't have any place for roads. We are importing. We are importing at the detriment of the island and its people. Every week, over almost close to 300 cars, between 200 and 300 automobiles.
Yeah.
We can't just have our cake and eat it. We have to look at something and realize that we have to leave something here for tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to be responsible in what we do today.
And we're not being responsible.
Nope.
Now, I'm just going to give you guys a scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Down in Key West, going down through the Florida Keys. The Florida Keys has a mandate.
Mm-hmm.
If a Burger King wants to come down there, do you think they can bring a Burger King sign and stick it up like how we have in Cayman? The answer to that is absolutely no. Do you think you can take your piece of land and run a bulldozer into it and tear down every birch tree and every mahogany tree on it? Well, let me tell you something. The answer to that is also no. Because the planning department goes in there and they will tell you categorically, and they will mark each tree that they want preserved. And you must build your building within the confines of that particular property.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a vacant piece of land and it is zoned specifically, you can build open on it. But your plan must conform to the island style of the Keys, of the Florida Keys.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
On top of that, you cannot be anything more than 3 stories high. Now, they have just built a brand new Hampton suite, Inn and Suite. The hotel is only 2 floors high, and it has the whole design is conscripted to look like a regular house, just to enhance within the community and the confines of where it is.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, our people, our planning department and our people have no forward vision in their way of thinking. And what you said they're doing about going over the fact of bringing new people in.
Mm-hmm.
We sit down and let our politicians of rank and file influence the younger ones and telling them all this crap in their heads. The problem is we must be individual thinkers for ourselves and clear our own minds. You ask these people what they're going to bring to me. What is their agenda when they get there? But you see what happens is every year we get all of these and say, oh, well, that one's an idiot and this one is stupid and blah, 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 and what he has done. I don't subscribe to the turkey and the chicken mentality and the refrigerator mentality. That's not me. And I ain't going to be no crab in a bucket. So while we remember that, we just need to look at how we get out there and mark that X that we've so timeless.
That's right. So true.
But then if I can ask, sorry, go ahead. I just want to, I was going to ask you, and you're talking about the acts and the participation of the electorate, and we see, well, for me, not just historic, because we watched it with the push for the women's right to vote, but this move for the referendum and just the comments from some people who feel that potentially there's a growing frustration with the process, not the verification, not the need to ensure that there is truth and disclosure and the like, but the public's inability to seamlessly access this democracy because of, again, the word that I've heard. If I heard it twice today, I've heard it 2,000 times. Arrogance on the part of so many elected to appointed to, self sort of, impose. What is it that we're not doing that we should be doing to make sure that this thing that we call, that the good ship Cayman continues to sail, not just into safe harbor?
I have my own opinion on that, on the whole
yes, sir.
referendum process, and it should be a people referendum. Help me.
Mm-hmm.
People
initiated referendum. Right.
And that is exactly what it should be. The government should have no damn say in it whatsoever.
Agreed.
None whatsoever. They are put there by us. We are bringing a referendum, and that is what we are doing.
And they should respect it.
When they should respect it.
Mm-hmm.
And we have been given. What was the good idea of giving out voters' registration cards?
Thank you.
Why do we go there and take our face picture, stamp our ID, verify everything, and then you're going to turn around and say just to jeopardize it? This whole thing, and forgive me, but this whole thing smacks of socialism and communism is where it's really heading. And if we as Caymanians don't wake up, our younger generation, people, there was some little young kid on the thing the other day that I was so proud of hearing on the radio. We must wake up, people, and let these people know they're there at our blessing. Either you put up or you get out.
Mm-hmm. Well,
why is it that we have to be this whole thing, and we're all afraid that this big man is going to run away and we're not going to get this big man? Who is Mr. Dark? I remember one of our, and I'll say this openly, one of our commanders, when Mr. Dark first came here, and he told me he wanted a mattress to take down to that man's place at West Indian Club when he first bought it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he had the audacity to call me and ask me, the set of mattresses was $600, and asked me if I was going to charge poor old Mr. Dark $600 for a mattress. Now, come on. I've never mentioned this publicly, but I'm mentioning it now because I've said it to people individually.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is where we're at. We're selling ourselves, people. We're selling our very soul.
Carla, if I could share something with you, I totally agree 100%. What I'm confused about is why are we wanting to look like other places in the world? Why are we wanting to change the unique place Cayman is to resemble something else somewhere else in the world? Why do we need to become the Dubai of the Caribbean, or the Monaco of the Caribbean, or the New York of the Caribbean? Why we just can't simply be the Cayman Islands that we have always been, and we can have sustainable development moving forward that looks out, that understands the landscape and the people and all benefit from? Why we have a sector in our country that only benefit a few, and our government is willing to do everything in their power to continue for it to stay that way? I just don't get it.
Right. Well, anything else you want to share with us, sir?
I totally agree with your sentiments there, Mario. That's why I alluded to the fact of the Florida Keys and the fact of what they use as sustainable development, because that is exactly the way it is. You can't just come in there and go willy-nilly, and it's like they sit down with their city councils, their town councils, whatever the heck they have down there, right? And it's planned out and it is laid out. They got their cruise ship coming in. There's one or two of them. That's what they're allowed. And they're the smaller cruise ships. They're no big cruise ships,
Mm-hmm.
And the place exists in harmony. Their price and value of living is the same as it is here in Cayman. There's not a damn piece difference with it. But they're all in harmony, and the place is booming. You know, we are here set on building edifices and monuments and hell-bent on destroying our native resources instead of trying to preserve what we have and look towards the future.
Well, together, right? Together. Hey, thanks very much, sir. Thanks very much for sharing. And with that, let's pause. It is our final break. We invite you to call and share your thoughts with us. Maybe this is just an indication of how productive this week is going to be. That was an excellent call. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
King Sports Center Art of Fun Summer Camp is back from July 2nd to August 2nd. Now in its 15th year, the Art of Fun Camp is ideal for kids ages 5 through 10 with activities from football, basketball, dodgeball, squash, rock climbing, arts and craft, dance, singing, and more. Your child can practice physical and social skills while having fun in a safe and secure environment. For more info, call 946-KING. Like King's Sports Center on Facebook, and you can also find them on Instagram or call 946-5464. King Sports Center, providing you with all your fitness, recreation, and relaxation needs. Register before May 31st and save 10% on camp registration.
This is JJ the Iceman. This is JJ the Iceman.
This is where the ride begins. A magical musical journey.
Weeknights on Radio Cayman, 8 to 10. Music on Express. Friday nights, 8 to midnight.
Music Express.
Radio Cayman's Music Express is brought to you by Taster's Choice, home of the $3 meal special.
The following is a special announcement from the Cayman Islands Civil Service Association.
It's that time again. SIXA Back to School. Members, backpack, and school supplies distribution will take place July 8th to the 12th, daily from 1 to 7 p.m. in Grand Cayman at the SIXA office located on the second floor of the Hospital Road Plaza above number 1 Shoe Shop.
And July 13th in Cayman Brac from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. at the Aston Ruddy Civic Center Medical Wing.
Members, you are being asked to kindly bring identification, and if you are collecting bags on behalf of another member, please bring a written signed note from that member with a copy of their ID as well. Remember, SIXA members backpack distribution July 8th to the 12th, daily from 1 to 7 p.m. in Grand Cayman at the SIXA office located on the second floor of the Hospital Road Plaza above number 1 Shoe Shop.
July 13th in Cayman Brac, 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. at the Aston Ruddy Civic Center Medical Wing. And to quote Anthony D'Angelo, develop a passion for learning. If you do, you will never cease to grow.
Headlines. With the latest headlines. All the news when you want it. Tune in to Radio Cayman for hourly headlines of the day's top stories.
One of Cayman's bright and shining young stars.
Local, regional, international.
Turning to international news.
Updates on the hour between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. on weekdays. Radio Cayman News.
Headlines.
Your voice, your choice for today's biggest news.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. It is open line. Got a good company of Mario Rankin, to that last caller for taking the time, and at the end for allowing us to be able to, take our break. Let's go to our phones though. Welcome. Good afternoon. You're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon, Dwayne.
Hey, welcome back, man. Good afternoon to you again.
Yeah, good afternoon to Mario.
Afternoon, sir.
Yes, the Dart, the first time I saw him, and the last time was in 1995 by West Shore Center, Butterfield Bank. He looked like somebody that got about $4,000 in the bank. But anyway, when it comes to Moses Colonel, if I had the power to do so, I would put him in prison.
Yeah, well,
hey, I don't disagree with you, my friend.
Anything else you want to share with us? All right. Yeah, I'm listening to that comment, and the hesitation is, well, go ahead, Mario.
Here's how I see it, right?
Yeah.
When you have certain politicians who push certain agendas. It makes people upset because they're disregarding what's really important. What's really important, right? So people have to get frustrated, and people feel like these people are committing crimes against them, and that they should be penalized for it. So, I think what the caller mean is that he's frustrated.
Yeah. He's not making any allegation. I hear that. That frustration, right? That frustration. I first heard it, I guess, publicly years ago. MLA Bernie Bush was sharing it. He shared it in one of his first campaigns. He was talking about the things, and because he said it publicly, some of us probably did not pay attention to it then, perhaps or not. No, but it's not just the young person who's unemployed. It's that senior, sort of secure individual who's in a job who say to you, "But do you realize how hard it is? Do you realize what this?" And they start to tell you things. That frustration that is permeating our society, the government's not listening, my neighbor is, all these things that are happening, if we are not careful, could that lead to not just social unrest, anarchy, to an unsafe society?
Well, I would pray to God that don't happen, that we don't get to that point.
Pray as well, man.
And I can tell you honestly, when we look at, I mean, and without putting any names to development or developers, there have been a lot of the unsustainable development in our country that we've allowed to happen, and it's just not that enterprise, Dart. It's just not him. You understand? And all of his stuff, from what I've seen, is world class, done with top quality. Now, we've seen some things on West Bay Road that we would have to question, that are not even remotely world class or top quality, but for some reason it's sitting there, and it's an eyesore, and it's a road or a beach, and we just allow it to happen. I mean, I go down to Bogasan and I look at that place that's in the water, where they piled in all those sheet metals, and it's a real disgrace.
You see the distance between the...
It's a disgrace.
Wow, yeah.
It shouldn't have. What we should be doing now is tearing that down. Whatever the cost is to that owner, tear it down, pay him, preserve that beach, put it back to where it was, to what it was, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Now, we can't do that in every instance down that corridor, because they're larger buildings and they're more expensive and it's a lot more costly. But at the end of the day, we look at the frustration of people like that caller, right? He's frustrated because all the efforts and all the things that he do on a day-to-day basis in order to allow him to afford to live in Cayman, right? He has a sense of urgency simply because he don't know how much longer he'll be able to sustain. And I feel the same way, and I said it to you during the break. I said, I look at Cayman and I look at what's happening, and we have to keep this fight. We have to continue, and we have to forge forward, because if we don't do it, we're going to end up getting in a position where it's too late. It's going to be completely gone. I can't imagine that we have Caymanian politicians who have chose to disregard, put aside Mario and all the other people, but they have chose to destroy our environment and what Cayman is, simply because they think it's in the best interest of moving forward. It's for the economic growth of the society in the Cayman Islands. Putting a four-finger pier, dredging 26 acres in Georgetown Harbor will certainly, most definitely, destroy our marine environment on that entire stretch of corridor, from Sunset House all the way to Norwest Point.
Well, let me ask you then. There's a notion by some that under the system that we have of governance and of politics, that yes, the people can have some input, they can have, a say in certain things, but at the end of the day, the government is going to make the decision. They're going to do what they're going to do.
Not after 2009, my friend. There's Section 7 of the Constitution that gives us that right for referendum. And for the Minister of Tourism, and I don't know who wrote his speech or he wrote it himself, either way, there had to be a thought process for him to utter the words trying to run the country on a referendum. You understand? Because what he don't realize is that every 4 years, that is technically a referendum where we go out and vote.
Right.
And so I don't know why would he be blatant about the disrespect of the voting public in this island.
So is that then, Mario, then that we are we are changing. We have changed because of the awareness of the Constitution and what is afforded by the Constitution to the people.
Well, the first, and I hear where you're going, and I mean I understand that, but I would like to ask Mr. Cocorno where he was living in the 1980s. I know he wasn't Cayman, and if you didn't know him and you heard him on the radio, you would never guess he from here. Now, that's no reason for me to discriminate against him. That's no reason for me to say you can't come back to Cayman. But when you come back to Cayman and run for politics, become a minister, and then you start to forge your way forward to destroy the future of this country because you have your own personal agenda that you need to serve at the expense of the Cayman Islands and its people and its environment and the future generations, that's what the caller was talking about. He should be put in prison. You understand? It was a metaphor. You understand? When people can come here to our shores who never stuck it out, who wasn't a part of the process to get Cayman to where it is, the audacity for that man to live in another country all his life, and now he gonna pull up anchor, set sail, end up in Cayman, drop his anchor, and now you want to sell our future for your political emblem that you can put on your chest like Superman and make all of your and satisfy your personal agenda. Sterling, if we don't have these conversations, and they can call, hey, listen, I'm really exhausted to the point where I feel what the civil servants feel, because they're at a position at a disadvantage where they're the largest block of the voting public, but yet they feel like they can't participate in things like this because they might be victimized, because they have been victimized. We've seen it. And for me, I want to encourage all of them, if you sign the petition, go out and get verified without the fear of victimization, and know that you're doing it for the right thing, because it's a small price to pay for the greater picture and for the greater effort at hand. Because if we set this precedent and we can demonstrate that we, the people of the Cayman Islands, care more about the Cayman Islands than we do of government's poor decision to destroy it, then that will set the precedent moving forward. And yes, Mr. Cocorno, that will be the landscape and the accountability that we use moving forward for politicians that have just not sat down and thought this process all the way through. Because you saying we need a pair to compete with who? A cruise ship comes to Cayman on a set agenda, Sterling. They don't go Jamaica twice. They don't go Montego Bay, leave, go to sea, and go back to Montego Bay. They go to Cayman, Cancun, Montego Bay, in that order. Okay? So, or in whatever order, but those three is where they end up. The cruise lines have duped the people of the Cayman Islands and Jamaica, Cancun, and all the other islands to make it seem as if we need them for them to come to us. They need us and a place to go to sell their floating vacations. Remember what the guy said on September the 26th? He said, we are the destination. The ports that we call to is just a perk. And that's where they sell their tours, and that's why they manipulate all the tours. If the government wanted to do something in the best interest of the people of the Cayman Islands, you know what they would have done? They would have made sure that only a limited amount of people have tour companies so that the pie not so watered down, and they would have ensured that the tour companies is who set the prices and that they made the most money and that they were all Caymanians. That's what they would have done if they had Cayman in the best interests. But again, we don't see those things because there's so many, personal agendas and self-serving things that we see out there, and lobbyists and people who ensure that that this landscape continues the way it is because of those people who are making the money. And those are the people who pay the politicians. Those are the people who pay for the campaigns. Those are the people who pick up the phone and say, hey, how come I don't see this happening? How come you allowed this one? Or how come this is taking place? It's affecting my business. Okay, and nobody can tell me that's not how it works. I sat on the inner belly of the UDP in 2009, and I can tell you it was a disgrace. Mario Rankin can tell you that because I was there. There's no hearsay, there's no mall road, there's no grape tree chatter. It was a disgrace. So when you hear people draw reference, well, you don't listen to Mario because he was part of UDP. Yeah, but past tense. When I saw the inside of that monster, where Mario is now. Now, if I was still there, by all means, I deserve the people criticizing, or the doubts, or the whatever issues they may have with me. But I've been saying the same thing for the last 18 years, from the day my son born to this day, which was my first child. I've been saying the same thing, because then I became involved with my surroundings, because now it was no longer a fight for just me. It was a fight for them. So I leave you with that, Sterling, and I just want to encourage people to go out and get verified. I want to thank the election office for their extended hours and the efforts that they're making. I want to try help to make their process easier, because if people can go down to the office and get verified, please do so. If not, reach out to the election office, let them know when you can be home and all these different things.
Mm-hmm.
And civil servants, please, we need you now. If there's ever been a time in our history that we needed our civil servants to step up to the plate, we need you guys now, because you are the largest voting bloc. And we need you, because without the participation of you guys, I don't know if this process is going to be successful. And we need everybody to set aside all of their fears and just go out and do what's right, because the Cayman Islands, its environment, and the future generations depending on it.
All right, Rankin, thank you for sharing, and for our people for continuing to champion our democracy. Listen, enjoy the rest of today. Trust that this week will not only be safe and productive, but it'll be one where you find a way to make an everlasting, positive, profound contribution to the greater good. Now, stay tuned. Allow Miss Susan to soothe you with some of her sensuous sounds as she plays, this beautiful songs. I know the music she plays, and I'll be careful how I say it, because, wow, I just said soothing and sensuous. People might say this is a talk show in the evening, not in the morning. All right, until tomorrow, be blessed.